standing alone, drinking whiskey
Welcome
and the
to another
bottle,
Coffee with
and
Samso,
trying to
where we
drown
talk
all
with
this
ASX companies and their managing directors and leaders, and we're talking about what's they've been doing. Today I have Venture Minerals here with Andrew Radonjic, who will be giving us an update on what's happening at Mount Lindsay. As we all know, tin price has reared its head up and is doing fantastically well. I think there's a big change in how we should be looking at venture. So, Andrew, welcome. Thanks for coming back.
Pleasure.
I know you got a very busy schedule. Look, the announcement that you put out, which is really consistent with what I've been been talking about with Mount Lindsay. But I'll let you sort of give us an explanation because there's some really major points there that we should touch on.
Yes, thank you, Noel. Look, the hole we announced, ML337, on a couple of days ago, was a fantastic result. You know, it's the first time we've drilled the Renison Mine Sequence at Mount Lindsay, and we've been successful with our first drilling. It's past history has shown that previous explorers have drilled the wrong way, in wrong orientation, and then we understood the geology, from the benefit of that, I suppose, their experience and work previously, and the work we've done in the exploration. We haven't drilled the holes, since 2013, so we're always keen on this target. And to step back, and we did the EM survey back in 2018, maybe towards the end of 2018, and we did the EM survey, and the airborne EM first time was flown across this project, and we generated 12 priority targets and around about nearly 50 EM targets. But a standout for us was this EM plate anomaly that stood out on the Renison Mine Sequence. And when you think about Renison, if you've ever been down to Renison Mine, you know that it's chock is full of pyrrhotite, which is an iron sulfide, which is electrically conductive, and that stands out. And on the EM, that's a tool of choice in terms of exploring for those sort of Renison style mineralisation. And Renison sits within the what's aptly named the Renison Mine Sequence. It's around about 140 metres wide, and at there locally, it's next to a heat source, meaning a granite, which is called Pine Hill granite from memory, and the mineralisation is wrapped around that within the sequence. And they've got it's a few different styles of mineralisation, but essentially it's a carbonate replacement or skarn type mineralisation. There's also a fault-bound mineralisation, so generally sort of narrower but massive sulfide zones, and that's in their case it's very much 98% tin is what they have, which is different to Mount Lindsay. Mount Lindsay is sitting in an adjacent rock type. It's again a skarn type mineralisation, but our mineralisation in Mount Lindsay has got magnetite, tin and tungsten. About 40% of the revenue in each case are very much co-products and a byproduct of magnetite. So we've already generated in excess of 80,000 tonnes of tin metal, whereas Renison, which has been mined since the 1880s, has an endowment of 500,000 tonnes of tin. So it's a world-class asset. One of the highest grade and largest underground tin mines in the world, and in Australia's case, the only tin mine we have operating at the moment. So for us to go a long strike on that sequence, we've got at least 10 k's of that sequence. You go to figure 4 in our announcement, and you can see that clearly there's very little or no drilling, and like I said before, some of the drilling was done in the past, was done the wrong way, and when you're drilling wetted material through your target zone back in the 1970s, you generally wash the clays away. So the horizon of interest was washed away. So, hence the opportunity for Venture to drill those holes, one in the correct orientation, and start to explore what the potential that has. But when you've got 10 kilometres of that sequence there, it's when you look at our cross section there on figure 5, we've got 5. Renison has 3 carbonate horizons, or dolomite / marble they've been converted into 3 carbonate horizons, which is where these are the preferred host components of the Renison Mine Sequence that hold the mineralisation. This is where, the source, the tin comes from the granite.
This is the dolomite you're talking about.
Dolomites, yeah, the tin comes from the granite. We've got the Meredith granite just sitting on our doorstep. That's why Mount Lindsay exists. And you've got the source of the tin, and it gets concentrated, the fluids come up and they deposit themselves. We alter the carbonate units, and then you've got a skarn or a carbonate replacement type. And we've got 16 metres of that in that very first hole, so quite a significant pickup. We don't know where we are in the system, but we know we're close to something that could be very, very good. And the grades of that, obviously will be determined over time, but we're going to do downhole EM to try and look for more massive sulphide, like Renison, where if we can get massive sulphide, then we can get to that source, then you can start getting, Renison type grades, 1 to 2% tin. And, when it's trading at $34,000 per tonne, as it is at the moment, that's a very, very high value rock on a per tonne basis, and very mineable from underground, and as Renison's showing today, very profitable, even a kilometre down underground at the moment. So so great opportunity for the company. And we've been sitting there waiting to drill this target for a number of years, and now we'll do tin price up, but that's why we've taken the opportunity. Prefer to wait for cash flow to come out of Riley, but that's why we started drilling back in May, because we saw now is the time to make a discovery, a new discovery, to push Mount Lindsay from being 80 odd thousand tonnes and start heading towards that 500,000 tonne type endowment that Renison has. And this is one of Australia's premier tin districts, clearly. And you've got the Cleveland tin mines been here as well, Mount Bischoff. So that's we've got great pedigree, and therefore, why wouldn't we explore this area? It's still very much Mount Lindsay is the flagship asset of venture, and I think with tin at record prices, tungsten moving up there to over $30,000 a tonne, now's the time for another discovery.
When we talk about the mine sequence and we're talking about the skarn, there is, from people that I've spoken to about this kind of styles, that they've got to remember that there's a big battle of big granite and a big heat source, because the mineralization is about heat more than anything else. And when we talk about your granite, that's it strikes for kilometers. So maybe help us get an understanding of the significance of this sequence. Yeah, I get that, look, Renison's been mining, as you said, for a long, long time. Even in depressed prices, they've made money. So that sort of shows the quality of what you're playing with. And this region, as you know, there's, Rosebery, and you got all sorts of, and Savage Mine, which is magnetite. You got good pedigree of mineralization, of a cooking sequence, right? Maybe help us get an understanding of what you really have there.
Well, look, if you step out and look at it in a regional sense, like the west coast of Tasmania has the Mountain Reed volcanics. You've got your Rosebery, your Helia, and we know the Mountain Reed volcanics extend into the mainland, and that's a great host for rocks. In fact, you can push that through into New South Wales, and so you're talking about copper gold, VMS type systems, but then you've got this massive granite called the Meredith granite, which pops up, and around it you've got Mount Lindsay, Savage River. Now, Savage River, even though it's a magnetite deposit, it's probably a skarn. At the end of the day, we might work it out, and people don't worry too much about the geology and where it comes from, but they just been mining it for 50 years. And it's magnetite, so magnetite, that's interesting. That's, Mount Lindsay's got magnetite in it, and then on the other side you've got the Cleveland tin mine, Mount Bischoff. So there's this massive heat source, and around the edge of it, and this happens in all styles of mineralisation. Gold is another very good example of that. Unless you've got the source, and you've got the right rock sequence for to deposit these minerals, get the right sort of chemistry, then you're never going to get something. And you look at, and you think, Renison's some distance away, but there was a gravity survey done by Mineral Resources Tasmania. They did the gravity line through along the road there, the Pyman Road, which connects to two hydro dams. So we'll get back to that later, but obviously we've got green renewable energy just going past our doorstep on the west coast of Tasmania. So battery donation concepts and all that, and wind power as well. So look. So when you look at that, the granite, it actually comes down, dips down underneath our Renison Mine Sequence we have here, and then comes. And there's this pair of granite coming out, and they give it a different name. They call it the Pine Hill granite. It's something, maybe it's a real deep one. There's just this pimple, if you like, that's coming out from that has heated up the Renison sequence, same sequence there, and caused the Renison deposit to exist. Well, actually, it's the same granite. So it's been proven that it just dips and it's just popped up, and when it's popped up closer to the surface with the right sort of geology, out comes the fluids, they deposit, and then the rest is history, as I say. So the Devonian granites that we have there are very clearly that age, and I think this has been proven not only. This what we're talking about is not just an Australian thing. This is because they're all around the world. You get the timing of mineralisation occurring is you can go and look at places in Cornwall. You can go look at places in China, and again the timing of these granites open up. There seems to be this mineralising event in a global sense, not just in Australia, but we have a little bit of that in Australia, and west coast of Tasmania, or northwest Tasmania is a perfect location, and it's not just about tin. It's about that heat sources are very important for all those other minerals and all those other mineral deposits that are formed. So, and the different minerals because of different host rocks, essentially.
In your announcement, you spoke about the plus 150 metres sort of alteration halo. What does that mean for exploration for the guys out there who are not boffins like you? I wouldn't say us. I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah. Well, look, there's been a fair bit of work done on study. Renison's been well studied, and Codes, which is based in Tasmania, has got a great ore deposit research arm, which they study, and a lot of very good geologists, better than us, I can say, in this, that have gone through and looked at this material. And we've got a great exploration manager, Dr. Stuart Arden, works for Venture Minerals and involved in the Mount Lindsay discovery, but not necessarily discovery, because we were drilling under old workings. We drilled hole 65, so it wasn't discovered by Aberfoyle. It wasn't discovered by Renison. It was being mined out back in 1910. Again, there's that people panning this heavy cassiterite mineral like gold up the creek and found it. So a new discovery that's not new, but by studying things like Renison, and many geologists, and at the new metals conference I was at yesterday, there were geologists came and said, I worked at Cleveland, I worked with Aberfoyle, I've mapped at Mount Lindsay a number of times, and they're all ex-Tasmanian, UTAS geologists who come through the Codes program, and so they've got a fairly big reputation, and it's all about finding the reason why these deposits exist and studying it. So when you look at the Renison Mine Sequence down at Renison itself, it's 140 metre wide alteration zone. Obviously it gets folded and faulted, etc. Obviously the granite coming up does some of that work, or a fair bit of that work, and there's 3 distinct dolomite units. It was carbonate units. So dolomite's just a carbonate, one version of it. And they could dolomite 1, 2, 3, and identified a red rock member, a conglomerate, and they try to understand why it's sitting there. And so we apply that stratigraphy, what they've learnt, to what we have, and very clearly we got the same units. The difference is we've got just and to have that you've got to have an alteration package, and then within that different intensities of alteration, and then within that, if you like, the ore horizons or the ore hosts. And we have 5 of those carbonate horizons where we are. It's 250 metres of the unit and 150 metres plus 150 metres of alteration. And we actually stopped drilling. We could have kept on drilling Success Creek, but we didn't go much further because we wanted to move on to the next hole. But it looks like we kind of got out of it. But there may be more to come. But certainly we've got a much broader alteration zone than Renison has, which is promising. Hopefully that there's a big source down there causing that.
The mother lode. For the guys out there, I mean, a lot of people are used to, gold grades and nickels, and so what kind of grade would be exciting for, a project like this? Are we talking about 2%, 0.5%, tin? I'm assuming I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, it's no, understand. Yeah, look, tin's 4 times the price of copper. Yep. So. You don't need the same grade as a copper mine. So, but I always like to break it down to dollars per ton, and look, 1% tin is 330 or $340 a ton, US. So that's going to be 400 plus Aussie dollars per ton, and that's pretty much like mining at Rosebery. We've got several percent zinc, lead, gold, silver, copper. So when you start getting value per ton basis in excess, because if I'm going to process it and I'm going to mine it, even a sort of a labour-intensive mining. I'm talking about Australian mines. So if you're talking about even $100 to mine it and $50 to process it, and you're mining $400 dirt, you're making money, and that's sort of, so that's 1%. Obviously, you've got to allow for recovery and all that, but that's sort of that's the way I sort of think, is thinking about, well, we're drilling 1%. Obviously, when you talk about where our approach is probably is to go underground mining, to minimise our footprint, and to if we're going to build a mine, we'll go build the tailings will be pumped back down the hole, so we can actually have a paste fill plant and all that, to minimise our footprints. That's the whole idea. But to go underground, you're going to need those sort of like 1% type grades, unless of course the thing about Renison is generally narrow. It's kind of like 4 metres wide. Mount Lindsay is much broader. The grades aren't as high. When you think about tin grades, you go, it's 0.4% tin, but it's 0.3% tungsten. So the value of the two are very similar. So you can add those two together, and then you've got the magnetite as a nice little kicker on the side. So quickly it adds up to over 1%, but the zones are much broader, so you can apply economics of scale, and that's what we're going to be doing. At Mount Lindsay, we'll look at building bigger stopes, maybe looking at some sort of caving techniques, methods, maybe look at ore sorting. We're going to try the ore sorting there, and maybe we do have a low-grade halo because of a skarn. It's got a halo. It's not like a narrow vein, but Renison tends to be much more narrow mineralisation and maybe more intense grade. So, and if we do come up with that Renison style mineralisation on the Renison Mine Sequence, which is what you'd expect, then you apply those sense of economics. But if we go and drill and we get 20 metres at 1%, then that's a pretty good result.
I think it's, well, let me ask, is it feasible to look at it from a point of view like narrow gold mine with high grade, like you said, 2 metres, 1 metre, like a bit like a Silver Lake story, where you can actually just go in there and dig a hole that's 2 metres wide or 3 metres wide and pull out that 10 grams, 8 grams. So it's actually a more economical style of mining, like for the Renison style. Would that be a fair comment? As opposed to sort of more broadly spaced?
Yeah, look, I think it. The way I sort of tend to look at things is that I'll let the ore body tell me what you can predict. It's about what you can predict. If it's if you start getting like an underground mine, if you start getting these narrow high grade chutes and it's small to mine, and people start bulking it out, it's just adding dilution. You might make it easier to mine. So they look at this scale. It's that battle between economics of scale versus and grade predictability. So if you go down and mine something narrow, high grade, and it becomes patchy in grade, and then your high costs ain't going to justify it unless you achieve a higher grade. So it's a little bit. Yeah, it's a hard question to answer very simply. Well, I've worked underground narrow vein gold mines before when the gold price was $500 an ounce, and we one place I was working at, we're mining, 1.5 metre wide ore body running 8 grams, but we made money out of it. Yeah. But I'm on another ore body, and the gold price was even a little bit lower. It was less than 4 grams per tonne, but we had something like 1,200 metres of development. So when you talk about ounces per vertical metre, I had a lot of tonnes and a lot of grade. So mining 4 gram dirt in the late 80s underground sounds like it's insane. We actually made money out of it because we had so much on a horizontal level. So it just depends on orientation. There's a whole bunch of things. And and what's interesting about Renison, when I went down there probably 10 years ago, and Metals, Peter Cook's done a great job then, and I worked with Peter previously in the goldfields, Eastern Goldfields. So I've known Peter for a while. And, his approach very much is to get that geology right and do a lot of drilling. So he was drilling spaces that historically for 100 years no one's actually, there's nothing there. And he'd drill and they just keep on finding stuff down there. It's amazing what they've done. And it's just because it's a world-class asset, it keeps delivering all the time. And you don't have walking there with blinkers. You just want to open up and sort of make sure you're looking at the whole spectrum. And maybe if they knew all about how much was there, they might have done a different approach to mining. They're constrained by plants, which is reasonably, say 700,000 tonnes per annum. They've got 3 ore sorters in there, so that ore sorting clearly works for them. So it's a great opportunity not only for Mount Lindsay or any other discoveries for a plant we're looking at.
This is at Renison?
This is at Renison. So I think if when we go underground, look at underground for Mount Lindsay, we'll look at the ore sorters, like I said before, to upgrade the low grade Halo to bulk out bigger stopes. So again, it's sort of that your question about grade and what you mine and the value of it sort of very much depends upon whether you've got can the low grade be upgraded, can the low grade add some value, can it justify the bulk mining. So it's a different approach, but look, we've got 16 metres of skarn. It's a great result. There's plenty of promise there. We've clearly got a big system nearby. It's a question of exactly where it is, and this will hopefully lead us into that system sooner rather than later. But I'm dead keen to go and drill that 10 kilometre strike sooner rather than later.
It's a funny thing. I tell people that that when you look at venture now today, venture maybe even when we first started the conversation, you're now at a point where you back then you were saying, look, we want to get Riley up and then we're going to bankroll this, but you can almost at this point in time say, look, that's a done deal. It will happen. And there may be delays, but it will happen, and hence you're now a much sort of more confident explorer because your wallet's getting bigger and bigger, and the wallet's going to get bigger. And I always say courage is a measure of how fat your wallet is. It comes to exploration, right?
Yeah.
You think you should drill there. Now it becomes, let's just do it because we can. And most times, as we know from exploration stories, is that I think we should have drilled that because now we can't drill it because we've got no money, is actually you should have drilled it because that's where it is. So when we look at the system and I look at what you guys got, like especially in Figure 4 and all that, it's a massive, massive granite, massive source. And like you said, 10 kilometres of strike. You've got a lot to play with. And you have proof in the pudding in Renison that you've got that major system. Therefore, even if you got half the Renison, I think you'll be more than happy.
Well, look, Renison, that's just one target. We've got all those other targets.
Yes, that's right.
We've got more Mount Lindsay style targets. We've got other targets. We've got Big Wilson. We hit 17 metres at 2% tin very first hole. That's 17 metres at 8% copper equivalent. Imagine that, middle of nowhere. We've got that was a great result in 2012. So we've got a whole bunch of skarns that need testing, and interesting thing about the west coast of Tasmania, is that it's got great prospectivity, but the opportunity still exists because the terrain is not. It's not like going to back of Western Australia and just picking it up off the ground. The low-hanging fruit, there's not much of it because it's bloody hard work. And the prospectors that went in there back in the 1880s, I don't know how they did that, but it's tough country. But hydro, Tasmania put in some roads, built some hydro dams, hence the green power's available to us today. But they put in roads, access.
Well, that's another thing that I was going to say. But going forward, we've done some good interviews with ESG and things like that. You almost by accident falls into that ESG category. You haven't needed to work because you've had to deal with that concept already, and then a lot of people don't realize you have hydropower next to you, and it's not something that you dreamed of or hoped for. It's there. Now, how true is that comment?
Yeah, look, we are, because the West Coast Tasmania's gone for wind power, hydropower, it is already the battery the nation concept. It's got the renewable energies at its doorstep. Andrew Forrest is trying to do using hydrogen power, building on the northeast of Tasmania a facility to process that. And he's realised the potential of Tasmania for that. So, it's, the harsh weather, the 3 metres of rainfall a year, the wind, etc. We can harness it. Today, that's what we can harness it. And it's there in abundance. We just happen to be there. The fact is that we're in a tier 1 jurisdiction in Australia, and the reason it's tier 1 is because there's a permitting place. We can go mine underground. We can use paste fill. We can get that. We can easily target the zero carbon emission footprint scenario here because it's just, you can just pluck it away. It's there. It's sitting there, easy to reach. You don't have to go and build a hydro system, and you don't have to do this and all that. Obviously solar's not going to work too well in Tasmania. So, but we have in abundance the renewable energy already through hydro and wind power. They're building wind farms all the way down the west coast of Tasmania. So, very much, it's a very unique asset. It's a hard rock mine. It's not like the alluvial mines, which are destroying the environment, either off the coast of Indonesia, going into ripping up the sea floor and just spitting the tailings out the back.
Yep.
So over half the world's tin is alluvially sourced. The other half is hard rock. So the LME is introducing only tax responsibly sourced concentrates or metals from 2022, which is, they said this a couple of years ago. Now it's next year. That thematic, Wood Mackenzie put out the report saying that if you look at it, the world's got a lot of tin, but most of it comes from 90% of it comes from high ESG risk areas. Bolivia, Peru, Brazil, Congo.
Don't say too much. They might come gunning for you, mate.
They may do. Banditos. Yeah. Rwanda, Uganda. Sort of. You go into Southeast Asia. You got China's got some great hard rock skarn deposits as well. So very similar. But mining in Myanmar, for example, that's happened is. I'm sure there's been no rehabilitation happening there, and the entire, not the entire, but Malaysia's basically mined out of tin, and they've left a big mess behind. And they're still on the bank of Bellington Islands. But they've basically mined what's on the land, and they're heading out into the ocean. And there's arguments with fishermen out there in an article that you showed me the other day, and that's not sustainable, and hence when you want to go at, if you want to tick the ESG box for tin going forwards, Mount Lindsay is in a perfect spot. And so I'm pretty excited about that, and the fact that where semiconductors are running out, which is tin and tungsten is required for. When you've got bugger all supply on the LME stockpiles, that's why your price is going up. I can only see the price going higher, to be honest with you.
I mean, we talked about the price a while ago, and we did this Rista talk, but you got to, all those things that you just said, all seems to give you the indication that it can't go down in some ways. I mean, this is like looking into a crystal ball comment, but you let me put it this way. To me, venture is green tin. I know you can't say it too much, but this is sort of like my picture. The price of where it is, you sort of think, well, how did it go that high so quickly? We haven't suddenly needed another 200,000 tons of tin. But however, if that ESG report is true, you take the supply out, you have a problem. You have a big problem, right?
That's
and
right.
and and it's real because, like you said, alluvial tin, it's not going to be ESG friendly.
Not at all. Not
Yeah.
at all. Yeah, and all those other jurisdictions, there's no, the permitting requirements are quite loose, if there are any, and rehabilitation. They just rip, tear, and bust and get it out there. This is like mining from years gone past. We don't do that in Australia anymore, and haven't done it for quite a while. And it's those other countries. Developing countries, and they're learning quickly, but it's going to take a while to upskill to where we are.
And costs will go up too.
And costs, that's what happened. Everyone talks about, you've got this battle between low labour costs versus sovereign risk, and now ESG. And you can't be compliant in ESG without increasing the costs.
Yeah.
Which means all of a sudden it puts those other projects in jeopardy. But that's the supply side of things. The demand supply. The demand is let's not forget, electric vehicles are just going to skyrocket.
Yeah.
The International Tin Association put out a number probably 18 months ago that we need another 60,000 tonnes of tin metal production per annum. We're only producing 320,000 tonnes. So to go from 320,000 to 380,000 by 2030.
Minus what you lose
Minus,
from ESG.
Yeah, all I can see is pressure on the price.
Yeah.
That's all I can see.
Which you could say, oh look, maybe the price has factored this in, and that's the reason why it's rising. But I think when it hits reality, it has to be floored at almost this pricing or higher.
Well, the cupboard's already bare at the LME.
Yeah.
It's pretty empty there, and whatever comes in gets gobbled up pretty quickly. So there's a lot of things about a lot of old stockpiles are appearing and they're disappearing quite quickly. So that's why tin is a critical mineral on almost every list in the world bar Australia. Though I think that's being addressed now. And tungsten is already a critical mineral from Mount Lindsay, which is great, but it's a critical mineral because you need it for in the electrification of everything. And we like to electrify our underground mine as well. We've got a great partner in the Elphinstone group who are looking towards electrifying underground equipment, Caterpillar equipment. So, obviously a big holder and shareholder in Venture Minerals, Dale, a big supporter of the company, and he's based in Tassie, on the north coast there. So, we can certainly follow that thematic, but to electrify everything, you're going to need circuitry, you're going to need solder, which is 96% tin, and still 25% of the world's tin is only 60% tin and 40% lead. So that process. That's what the price was up 10 years ago, 30 odd thousand, because of that demand went up to change to lead-free solder. Today, it's all about demand for needing more solder. Tin's used in the anodes of batteries. It's using lithium-ion batteries to improve efficiencies. So again, they're not large amounts. It's a small amount of tin, but it's in anything that's electronic. Tin is there. It's being used in chemicals as a catalyst in fuel. It's being used in PVC stabilizer. It's used for coating copper wiring to prevent it from rusting, like tin cans. Tin can is obviously everyone. I would laugh at people still think, do your research. Tin is not just about tin cans, it's about solder, and it's very much getting a lot of use in solar cells, and because smart glass, what makes smart glass work? Tin is in there, because it's electrically conductive. And that aspect allows us to separate the tin and tungsten in our new flow sheet we're going to do, which is gravity focused, because tin and tungsten are both heavy. So that tool, the qualities of tin allows us to, is a huge benefit. And as a consequence, they describe salt as the glue that's everything electronic. And then therefore, going forward, I can only see demand for tin getting stronger and stronger, and the price will go higher, and the demand for tin, there has been no exploration in Australia for essentially 3 decades. There's a bit of a, since probably since say the early 80s, there's a blip, where it was in around 2010, where we drilled 83,000 metres at Mount Lindsay, and we got 80 odd thousand tonnes of tin metal there in resource, but we only scratched the surface. As we said to most people, we only drilled 10% of our targets. To be honest with you, after the EM survey, that's it's even a smaller percentage now. So we just went there and we did infill and extensional drilling. We hardly did any exploration, and that's why this Renison Mine Sequence opportunity exists today. We've been sitting there waiting. We actually had time after the infill drilling and all that to go and start doing some exploration, and then tin price came off. So we've been waiting a while to drill this fantastic target. And there's many more Mount Lindsay style targets as well within the entire sequence. So, we could, target for what we have today is really stage one. Like every other mine on the West Coast, you hear Rosebery 85 years, Savage is a new kid in the block at 50, Mount Lyell 120 years, listed Renison 130 years. That's what we're looking for, a multi-decade opportunity here. So we can supply the sustainable, or green tin as you call it, to the world, to electrify everything, to get those carbon emissions down.
Look, from when the first conversation we had was going more than 12 months ago now. I remember I sat back and I thought, you guys got so many projects. How am I going to entitle this coffee with Samso? And I came up with this word called Diversified Mineral Explorer. Mate, from there to today, you've almost to the letter has done what you guys said you would do, was get Riley up, be self-sufficient, have that bundle of cash in your wallet to develop Mount Lindsay and your tin projects here, or tin tungsten at that point in time, and that's where we are today, right? Look, I think it's a fantastic project. For guys out there, I think it's a great do your own research project. You can look at what they've done. I think this is the perfect green story, in my opinion, because by virtue of the fact that you're in Tasmania, you can't go and just do what you like. You've got to be fairly green in that sense. And by going underground and limiting your works there, it's good. And one of the biggest issues is obviously your power, which we can tap onto the hydropower, which is a discussion I'm sure you guys will have as you go forward. Electrification vehicles is coming anyway. It's, and the big machineries would be salivating at doing this, because that's puts them right in front of the forefront of the ESG story, right? So I'm quite comfortable in saying that this is a green story by default, not sort of generated in some ways. You better not say anything, because the ASX will come after you, mate. But that's my opinion. But look, Andrew, it's really a story that I have a lot of passion about. I love this concept. I'm a bit of a tin tungsten guy anyway, but going forward, like for those guys who are sitting on the fence thinking, I wonder what these guys are doing. What would you say to them to say, hey, you come on board now, what would those words of wisdom from the grey fox say?
Yeah, look, we're not Johnny come latelys. We've been there in Tasmania for 15 years. We've already spent $35 million on the project. So we've done a fair bit of work. We did a feasibility study before. We know the area well. We know who to go to. We're building the team again. We've started drilling. We know the price. We can see the runs on the board. This is the time to come on board. It's not as if, we are, we've got a permit that's in there already for a large open pit with a small underground underneath it. We're going to change that so we go fully underground. We're in the process of doing that. We're probably 2 to 3 years away from building an underground mine, building a plant on that. We'll use the Riley plant as a front end to that. So we've got a lot of the things already there. So if people, like when we started this journey before at Mount Lindsay, we drilled the first hole in 2007. Remember, October 31st, we drilled the first hole. Hole 65 it was, our first hole. But, you know, using all that history before us to get, and we moved quickly, and by 2012 we did a feasibility, you know, a bankable feasibility study, and so we can leverage a lot on that. So we've gone a long way down that path. So, you know, there's no learning curve involved here. We didn't capture the wave last time, but I think it's a tsunami coming this time. It's a much bigger wave.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
And we're already out. You know, we haven't started at the beach, waxing the board and waiting for the waves. We're actually out there waiting to capture it. So this is a great opportunity, and we've got a great solid background. We've got stage one kind of really mapped out already. We know all the experts tin world have worked for us again, and we're building that team again now, and we're ready to go. So like we'll have O'Reilly operations will be one division for venture. Mount Lindsay will be another division. We'll get the permitting finished. We'll explore to find more. So we're looking at extending the mine life, and any success will obviously add value there. And we've got some great exploration potential. So we've got all the ingredients you need. You know, it can be, you know, whilst we're mining the iron ore, we can develop the tin asset and we can find more. So very quickly you can go, hang on, they've got nearly 100,000 tonnes sitting out there, not even in a Renison Mine Sequence. They're drilling an area which has got potential for another 500,000 tonne tin asset, which is like world class. And they've got several opportunities of finding more Mount Lindsays. So, you know, Renison's a postage stamp compared to what we have. We're on top of the heat source there at Merritt. So I can see huge potential. And what's the great thing about skarns is that as you get further away from skarns, you get other minerals develop. You start getting lead, zinc, copper, silver. So anyway,
I did think of that, but I knew that we were time conscious. We would be here till tomorrow. But look, Andrew, fantastic story. I'm a big champion of what you guys got there, because obviously everything's lined up for you guys. You know, it's about lining those ducks up. If those ducks weren't lined up, the story wouldn't be as attractive, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And now with a sort of a bundle of cash flowing in, and let's not jinx it, but you know, all that will come in, and you guys probably will sit in some of a non-dilutional fundraising process for the next 12 months or 18 months anyway. Because if all that cash coming in, it's you're going to be using your own cash, right? But look, thank you, Andrew, and we look forward to, you know, getting some numbers from your drilling. Should be whenever. So thank you.
No, pleasure as always.
Drinking whiskey at the bottle, honey trying to drown all his sorrows. Only thing that I know, if it glitters, it ain't gold. I just let my heart break and trade that for a good song.